If you do those 5 steps every single time you're creating a product or a service, you are going to 9 times out of 10 hit a home run, make some great money, actually have a viable business, and move onward and upward towards that lifestyle of freedom that you so much enjoy. Hey there, my loves. Welcome back to my channel. I'm CP, and this is CPTV, the place where aspiring entrepreneurs and current entrepreneurs want to turn their passions into businesses and their businesses into freedoms. Because I give you the tried and true tips and tools, roadmaps, strategies, and how-tos on how to get that done so that you can experience the entrepreneurial freedom that you so much desire. If that sounds good to you, then this is the channel for you. Make sure that you like and you subscribe and that you share the love with the world. So you are out there in the world starting a business and you have a great business idea. Now it is time to sell that business idea, right? Because you won't have a business if you're not making any money, if you're not driving any revenue, and if no one's actually buying your product or service. And so one of the biggest things that comes up in your mind is, all right, how do I create this product or this service that ultimately I want to sell, be very successful in selling, and to grow my audience and have impact on the world with? So I get that question a lot. How do I do it, CP? Well, let me show you how to do this, Brutus.
I want to do this, Brutus, but I don't want to pay.
Because it is not as hard as you think. Let's get to work. So here are the 4 steps, okay? Step number 1, write down your ideal customer pain points and transformation goals. That's really the first step. You don't want to create a product or a service that is not based completely off of something that your customer says that they want or that they need. And if you don't begin to really take the time to write down all of those pain points, to write down where they ultimately want to get and what their transformation is going to look like, it's going to be very difficult for you to develop a product or a service that's going to meet those needs and that people are actually going to buy. For instance, in my case, I kind of keep one document where it's called like customer pain points. And it's a Word document that I have access to in my OneDrive, on my computer, on my phone. And whenever I'm in contact with someone that I think is going to be an ideal customer avatar for me, or someone who I know is an aspiring entrepreneur or working to grow their businesses, I talk to them and I find out exactly what's causing them frustration. I'm asking all the time. I'm really trying to uncover those pain points. And then we're also talking about what that utopia would look like for them. And then I take that information and I add it to that list. So my list is probably up to 4 or 5 pages. And it is full of pain points and it is full of transformation goals of my ideal customer avatar. So when I'm creating a new product or a new service in my business or in my organization, which sometimes happens, we kind of take a look at it and evaluate it on an annual basis. The first thing I do is actually pull out those pain points, pull out that documentation that I've been kind of accumulating, and I begin to figure out exactly what I can create that's going to directly address those pain points and needs. So if you don't do this step, you're going to create something that nobody really says they want, nobody has told you that they need, and ultimately no one's actually going to pay for it. Step number 2, now that you have an idea of what all the needs are out there, what the pain points are, and what the transformation actually looks like, it is time for you to begin to brainstorm all the solutions that your business idea can provide. You really do need to know, what can you do to solve that problem, right? What can you do in order to get someone to that transformation? And what is that whole thing going to look like? What can you create to kind of get your customer from point A to point Z? Now that thing you can create could be a product, or it could be a service, or it can be an online product or an educational product or some type of consulting package or a coaching package or something. Whatever it is that you can ultimately sit down and say, hey, these are 10 things that I think I can create to solve the pain point and get my customer to that period of transportation, to that period of transformation. And now you've got really a great list of potential ideas of things that you can ultimately do to solve those problems and get folks to that end goal. So now we've thought about all the problems that exist and what the transformation should look like. We've begun to brainstorm all of the things that we might be able to create in order to solve those problems and get people to that transformation. Now step 3 comes into play. And in step 3, you have to determine what the product or service needs to look like in order to do just that. So, what steps does the product or service need to contain or have in order to get folks from point A to point Z? For instance, when I was kind of coming up with what a consulting package might look like, specifically for my clients who were having trouble, let's just say, implementing a disciplinary process and holding their employees accountable. It was just something they were very uncomfortable with. It was a constant pain point. It was a huge frustration for those clients. And so when we actually came up with our disciplinary toolkit and online toolkit, we looked at all of the things that those folks told us they were having difficulty with. And then I sat down and said, all right, here's all the steps that this client really does need to take in order to get to that end result, which was having employees who were performing very well and who weren't necessarily needing additional accountabilities, right? They wanted to ultimately transform the attitude, the motivational levels, and the actual work ethic of the employee. So knowing that they were at this place where employees weren't comfortable and needed to be held accountable, knowing that they just wanted to get to a point where they could comfortably hold folks accountable, I was able to kind of create what that entire online course should look like. But whether it's an online course or one of my consulting packages, I've always been able to say, all right, what are all the pieces of the puzzle that this customer is going to need in order to get to that utopia, in order to get to that transformation? And I began to create and outline what the steps were going to be and what that product or service really needs to look like. Is the product that you're really thinking about, is it going to solve that problem? Is it going to provide a solution? And then also, is it going to be a service that could potentially provide a solution? So I have a really good friend of mine who's actually working on an amazing product, and it's really trying to solve the problem for us ladies when we're out in public and we need to dab our face or actually take some shine off, and we prefer to use kind of a sponge versus a brush. There was really nothing out there that solved that problem. And so what she did was she looked at what that problem was based off of her own experiences and the experiences of her friends. She kind of came up with a to-go solution for that, where you could actually have a sponge that would be attractive for you to use in public. And she began to kind of put together everything that that particular product would need to have in it in order to solve all of those problems and pain points. So that's another example of the way that you kind of want to begin to map out everything that your product or service would contain in order to get your customer to that end goal and that transformation. Now, step number 4 in coming up with that perfect product or service that people will actually buy is researching the ideas that you just came up with in step 3. Great. You've got the ideas. You've got them jotted down. You even have the breakdown of what those ideas and products and services are going to include. Awesome. Now you've got to actually go out there and do your due diligence and do your research on finding out exactly if your idea is a good fit. And there's 3 things that I really want you to focus on in researching. And that is, number 1, your competition. You want to make sure that you've actually got some. A lot of people get freaked out if they find out that they have an idea and they go into Google and they plop in their idea and there's tons and tons of organizations or services or products out there that exist. You get really kind of nervous. But I say, yes, let's celebrate that, because if you don't have competition, then that means your idea is probably not a good one. It's not that somebody else hasn't come up with it, because the idea of that in today's day and age is really kind of egotistical in a sense. I'm sure someone has thought of it. It's just, if you don't have anybody out there already doing it at all, or already having thought about it or having different options, then that's usually an indication that there may not be an audience need for it. So first thing you want to do is find out if you've got competition. And then when you find out who that competition is, I want you to pick your top 10 and really begin to dive in. I want you to focus on finding the holes that exist exist in that competition, because ultimately what you're going to create is your own unique value proposition in this product. And in order for it to be unique, you have to be able to identify in your competitors what's still missing. What pain point are they still not addressing? And what piece of that transformation for your customer are they still not going to be able to get people to? And then you want to include those things in your product. So make sure you understand and know your competition. You also want to research pricing, structures, processes that are currently being used in order to deliver that product or service. That's going to give you some great ideas of how you really want to implement and kind of categorize and wireframe your product or service idea. But you really want to do some diving in, because it's going to give you a great baseline for pricing. It's going to show you how people are selling it, who's being successful at it. It's also going to give you an idea of what processes really need to be considered as you create your product and service, because based on what other people are doing, what's been successful out there, don't reinvent the wheel. Just do your research and get a lot of information so that you have an idea of what direction you want to go. Now, the other thing that you really want to research is feedback and reviews. I cannot tell you how important it is for you to actually locate a product or service that's similar to your idea, and then just begin to absorb all of the feedback and all of the reviews that already exist for it. That feedback and those reviews are going to give you some real true insight into things that you need to include in your product or service offering, or things that you may be thinking you already want to include, but that your customer is basically saying, don't include this sucks. So you want to pay attention to that customer feedback and those reviews. And as you really dive into them, you're going to continue to get more information and more data to streamline your product or your service idea and really hone in on that one that's going to be the most successful. Now, one of the questions that I get from people all the time is, how do I do all of this research CP? And obviously, if you're in the CP Startup Academy, we go through the details and I walk you through exactly what to do. But for purposes of this short video that I'm giving you right now, I would say there's 3 primary resources that I use in order to do my research. Number one, it's kind of a no-brainer, right? Google. I go in and I Google, but I do more than just look at the top 3 resources and tools that pop up. Most of us really rarely migrate from that first page of the Google search. I will go 5, 6 pages deep sometimes and click on everything and read as much as I can and begin to absorb everything that there is to know out there about what it is, because I'm sure that doing that deep dive on Google, I'll find out more information that will help me streamline my product and service and make the tweaks that I need to make in order to come up with a final one. I also go on Amazon. Amazon is one of those places that has amazing reviews. And so if I am looking for a service delivery, I will go out and find a book that's identical to what it is that I'm thinking about doing or offering, and look at the reviews on that book and talk about what that book had. Maybe I'll even order the book. Sometimes for my competitors, I will actually order their product or service and test it myself, doing all of that in research. And also social media. Facebook groups is an amazing place to go. And most organizations that have a product or a service have some type of Facebook group out there of clients or of customers or of prospects that are really talking about the impact that the product or service has on them, on what they've experienced, and they're giving reviews and feedback in these groups. And so you want to make sure that you're included in these groups so that you can really access that feedback and do a great job at absorbing all of the information that you have at your fingertips. So this step number 4, researching, is really, really important, because as you dive more, as you educate yourself more, you're really going to be able to continue to streamline that product or that service, come up with some pricing ideas, and know that your idea is viable. There's a great fit for it. And you'll also get in advance the ideas of what mistakes you don't want to make and what things you want to make sure you include. And step number 5 in creating products that your clients will actually buy is to finalize your idea, validate that idea, and test it. This is a step that most people miss. I can tell you, the very first time I opened my first business, I did not validate or test my business idea well enough, and completely faced a lot of frustration when I could not figure out why people didn't want to buy it, why I wasn't making enough money off of it, why I felt like I wasn't getting the sales that I needed. And then I realized at that moment, you didn't even ask anybody. You didn't test it. You didn't give yourself an opportunity to make mistakes, to tweak it and to get that feedback. And so step 5 is really, really important. How do you test it? How do you validate it? That's a question that I get all the time. And let me walk you through kind of the 2 things that I do when I'm testing out a product. The first thing is I will actually give it away for free. I will establish a beta group of folks that I think are my ideal customers that could really benefit from my product or service based off of all the previous 4 steps that we talked about. And I will actually give them the product or the service for free in exchange for their feedback, for them helping me develop it, for them helping me tweak it, for them really truly being honest. And at the end, when they achieve that transformation after they've gone through the entire product or service and they've achieved that transformation, I ask for great reviews and referrals and social proof. So you've got to make sure that you're testing it. Do a beta group. Give yourself 60 or 90 or 6 months, depending upon your product or service, to really get it out there so that you can give it to people, let them use it, and then sit down with them and say, what'd you like, what you didn't like, what else is it missing, what else can I add, and how was the pricing? What would you pay for something like this? Because it will ultimately help you come up with that perfect price as well. I also love to get feedback in that process. So as many people as possible that you can incorporate into this testing and validation phase, please do, because you may come up with some additional ideas and finalizations of those products and services that you really, really need to have before you launch your business. The worst thing in the world to do is to not have an idea if you're walking into a brick wall with a product or service. And step number 5 is really critical in that process as well. So there you have it. Hey, we have us a good product or service. After you are done, you should have a really good, solid idea, pretty solid product or service that you are ready to move forward with. It doesn't mean that you'll never change it. It doesn't mean that you won't continue to tweak and to monitor. It doesn't mean that in the future you may come out with something else or something different. But if you stick to these 5 tips that I just gave you, these 5 steps in order to create that perfect product or service that you know someone else is going to buy, if you do those 5 steps every single time you're creating a product or a service, you are going to 9 times out of 10 hit a home run, make some great money, actually have a viable business, and move onward and upward towards that lifestyle of freedom that you so much enjoy. So thank you guys so much today for coming out. Hopefully you got the idea. You are ready to go out there, create that perfect product or that perfect service for your startup business. I am so excited to hear what you came up with. Leave it down in the comments for me below. And until next time, my love, I will see you on Friday. Mwah!